Chinese malung total morado kul adal nasabi laban kita al tutaw Tiang yama mang luma elal mil episode the 26th episode dari kita Berius el ice magimira tutayak agim sa set yang hotel el episode takmong 26 maktiambal mlo atter later al silsel July 26 kita o Berius el ice el episode 26 mang malungit tutaw el mortegal rokol adal kuk masabi laban kita al tutaw Share kita al tutaw mal di mo mukha ng kal okya kalgi de ko na di give update last el show lo bang kala kal okya kalgi da sera 2019 ma yel ko kra tokoy ma umsubuluro le segi del time am no super in miski the update de ko na maakmet el 3 years nguk maingat el mga aduring gina lagay the continuation or really after a pandemic mga nang kleling no sabi ilkuk na mutil start al mevisit ra balwad masenter gida continue kay gida really gina umsubela toko ramran tama toko ra klangal ngladab mangkal okay karanga kangkang professor at Stanford University klangal Stephen Palumb nga also sa akra one regel got el maral isel school of adal niya Stanford University mlamo bekal summer malubong bekal draging galing at el me holding la center mrula relel gelela umsubela marand el swab al sela mal magyad da ubado sang heat tolerant corals sagit ya ko specialty ng kagid el okay nga ma elal tutay hindi mo sukan mutyal te ale mongol masa ulal man ko di mo introduce himself ko o sa sang ko nga lorul so good morning Mr. Palumb, I know it's been a while since you've been on the radio show. I was telling the listeners that the last time you came was in 2019, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
So it's been a while. So today's show, we'll just give a brief update of the project and what are your plans. But before we get into that, if you could just briefly reintroduce yourself and kind of tell us which part of the world did you come from, a little bit about what you do.
Well, thank you so much, Singe. It's like so fun to be back. We've missed it, really. The last 2 years we haven't been able to come, and everyone has really missed it. And honestly, even before I say who I am, I just really want to say for all of us, we are so lucky to be able to work with you all. And so privileged to be able to work in your reefs, in your islands, and just be part of what it is you do. We don't take it for granted, and we really think that it's important to say how much we appreciate the chance to work here. And because of that, we're really trying to do things that we think could be helpful and useful. And then turn that over to you all to use it in your future. Because honestly, around the world, Palau has the most amazing reputation for taking care of its ocean and taking care of the animals in the ocean and taking care of the people that depend on the ocean. So all of that means it's such a great place to work and a great place to be. So, PICRC is a fabulous lab. Everyone here that we meet all throughout the islands are so welcoming, helpful, fun, smiling. Who am I? I'm a professor at Stanford, and I work at our marine lab, which is called the Hopkins Marine Lab in Monterey. So that's about 100 miles south of San Francisco on the California coast. But I didn't grow up there. I grew up in Baltimore, which is a city on the east coast of the U.S., working class city on the Chesapeake Bay with big ports. But I grew up around watermen, crab fishermen, oyster fishermen, going to the beach. And so that's where I kind of fell in love with the ocean. And so I've been a marine biologist my whole professional career, and we've worked in the Caribbean, we've worked in Hawaii for a long time, worked in American Samoa, worked around the Pacific, and Palau is just such a treasure of a place. to be able to do this.
Thank you, Mr. Palumbi. So, ngal toktang kang waseng kam luguraw ra blurang barth ersel kuk east side ra east coast ra blurang barth mang luguraw lel kora labantirar adar ominged mar adal kora mala rung mangarang mang kora segi del temel el maran bakal adeng ngarnya interest ngi at kora marine biology mang nringat alel mo ngartegi del lorior ra Hopkins Marine Lab el ngara Monterey, California. El seguid el lab en ngañate el la orior el mera regal bek el valura al sala Pacific el último con Hawaii ma American Samoa el madire el valur belawe o asa seng mal me warungul el lawyer la bentra other belau el tamal ngal tangat mal ngalingira rangira mbro lega gitu lawyer leng sorry lo mesa gagid el pekpeding el omsub el yere la miranda mang mal o tingi apalwad el mal ungilar atheringi el karigi ka tokora luge la klangar conservation daga dil baluma diregal tab ma diregal nganyat elir lo bengela center gid el provider segid el dulwasing ولا research facility المنسبة إلى القندق تجاهد الأمسوبير. So thank you, Mr. Palumbi, for that brief introduction. So I know that you've been on the show before and you talked about the project, but maybe we have new listeners.
Oh, sure.
And so could you briefly explain your project that you've been doing here in Palau and what is it about, and what are your current plans now that you're here for the summer?
Yeah, the current project is based on what we know about climate change and how it's affecting the oceans kind of all over the world, but particularly in coral reefs in the Pacific. And we know that, as the climate gets a little warmer, then the ocean temperatures are going up. And storms are more frequent, and in particular, that damages the corals that are all around these islands. The storms obviously damage them, but there's been storms forever. That's like storms are normal. What's different is that the water is getting warmer, and as the water gets warmer, the corals that live in it begin to suffer. And they suffer in one particular way called coral bleaching, when they turn white.
Galtokta nga osa say talom subalo ringi agora base tokora climate change gagid el tokol da mesel agora moktubelo ulang climate change matasorin masubra gagid el waseng maranda malubay gagid el coral reef ecosystems ra al sala Pacific. Mga al ngariya to climate change ya dodong edwa se ada pambral mo makyal solar mo makyal da biagel maran dal ngal sala da ba mom ituute math ul misal babile do morada be o mes ngariya maran dal mo belelew selbal be elelew maran de tokmulo san coral bleaching leng ngariya ula wonder ula gigi dal maria coral bleaching amo makyal da ba.
Right. And so what we're hoping to find, and what we have found, is that there are some corals that are resistant to that bleaching. And that's important because the corals play a huge role in all the ecosystems here. Everybody knows that fish come to live corals where the coral reef is healthy, and then the corals are growing the reef itself, and that's that reef that protects all of the islands with the lagoon behind it. And if the corals bleach, they very often die, and then they don't grow the reef, they don't protect the land, they don't make places for the fish to live, they change everything. So we have been really interested in if the corals here can resist that warming.
Mangka o asala say given balmakel da beng moringa coral bleaching malubang mo smeramrand mo beleleweng blood clot elel matamrand ma tegi del gora ul omsubira waseng sorin mom o madingil waseng ngaral maranda sa PL dito laseng heat resistant malubang sa PL el suabla talgiban magyal tal dabar sel normal temperature gila la maranda el keringi e ngaringi omsu ma pabirlo ay sila seng ngaringi pabira maranda la blue belawol sa PL el tukura akal dala la dabar sa lor mo magyal ma partitege dalo wele la waseng ngaral maranda ngaringi mal telay di sel maranda sa PL tukura talgib el magyal tal dabar sel normal temperature la dabar.
Yeah. So that's been the project, is using the lab at PICRC and the boats and the boat drivers to move around the whole islands in the lagoon and test the corals to see if they're heat resistant. And what we have at PICRC right now is a whole set of coral reef tanks. You've seen them. They take up like a lot of space. And in each of them, we simulate what it would be like at a really hot day when the ocean temperature has gotten warm. And then we put the corals in there. They go through this really hot day. What do? And that's the test. Some of them bleach. They turn white. But some of them don't. And that's the real key. Because if you have the same coral species, like a tabletop coral that gets like the size of this table here, one individual, you take a little piece, bring it to the lab, test it. Another individual would take a little piece, bring it to the lab, test it. And they differ in how they react to the same temperature. Like this one would bleach and that one wouldn't. So we're looking for the ones that don't bleach, because those are a place where those reefs are more resistant to warm water.
Mangkal taktang ay sa CL at tagi del rally laro ring el all time. Among Malaya there's still give regal maranda ola balmira center wala ngaringi tangger til blal set up el ngararba la center tolto igay del coral al cell gore trail simulator cell hotel mo Magayal del dabar al sela tal sils. So sela tal sils ang sa adalo sa ngamura tutawing cell normal temperature ang aringi am sila lotungir al sel tang ang increase la temperature al sel tang. So korada do sing stress tank.
Yeah.
Leto tra el stress ng coral ang mesal waseng kang sabi el tura magayal del realm. Real del dab. So ngase bekal padengel amranda lolay al selawan el galbek padengel area el miliwek belaw sa level visit to ngaringi gel site 30 el bololay gid el sample e malme otura tang e gore run project and then at mo identify waseng ngara gel maranda mo bleach malubang mo belele mong math ang ngarangi am nasa el swabel tiel magia del daba so sige dia agora imitir wase sorry mam denga say what kind of coral can resist heat and tom denga wase gal coral sel ngila yung ngaram lang al site mang sige dia agora like this sige agora project tiel ringi.
So that's been our project, and we have a map now. And that map has been really added to, and just an important part of our whole team is Victor Nestor, who is a researcher at PICRC, as you know. He's been working with us this whole time, and we have produced a map of where the heat-resistant corals are. We haven't tested everywhere, but for example, there's a whole set of reefs right behind the forereef in Amalik State. And that set of reefs, about 5 or 6 in a little patch, are the most heat-resistant reefs that we have found. And the corals, when we collect them there, they resist heat that other corals bleach at. So we're sort of identifying areas in the corals around here that you might call super reefs. They're heat resistant. They're probably going to do a little better in the future because they can take that heat. And there's 2 things you can do with those corals. Like in Amalik State, you could protect that set of reefs from other damage. And then you can also use those corals and make, say, coral nurseries with them, and then use them to grow other heat-resistant reefs in other places.
Mangka nga tokta nga ay sa lasing ngaringi map los peringi etamlaro il map out el ber padinga la pasol la loru legi de study emes lo ase ngaringi maranda el heat resistant but ngaringi map partir el blal ir wasetegi del project wa ul matamla mosobe il plat malubat ta eda igel ber padinga la pasol ngaringi heat resistant coral seringi ngo ay sala se tegi del project marele lang beringa te'alel al-malo Laurier closely with one of the PICRC researcher hanggang Mr. Victor Nestor el tuluyer tegi del project emblematic el wasing ngaringi pasyon nga ray melig el ngaringi gagi del biltig el maranda ringi el more resistant el morahit malubang sa elo tura magal del dap compared to baby la corals nga ra baby la pasyon nga ra belaw. And then seguid el pasyo wasay ngaringi atul to el ako sa ether mul wasay kasi ada decided protector seguid el pasyo el mansabe el continue el protector gagit el miranda le gadam nigel wasay ay el padinga na report el naray kale obis rawa IPCC kale gara climate change mangarang en maral mo magal that it's getting warmer. So ay kay el coral sa el kada ko waseng gora hopefully ang sabi el swabel until selbol magal tata ang ngero nga waseng sabi el direga los pe away kay el site el debatig el watig el ngalay maligal mo murula coral nursery maluba kadom arol la maranda الإجاجة بدنا الأمران الريسيستنت المراهيد إن سأل الملمي إغوري أمقبو إن أمقال لابد تقول مران اللوبات يجي التشينريني الهيت ريسيستنت مالوبة ملا إيفولف المو تغل سال المئتوت المرام غير الثاب من سأل موت المبتغى يجي المران رأل سلبي له.
And that the reefs in Amalig are not the only heat-resistant ones; they're just the most ones. We find heat-resistant corals everywhere, but in lesser numbers. There's a set of reefs on the eastern side, right, the channel near that comes out from Koror, and there's a whole set of heat-resistant corals out there as well. And then in the very north, near the Abil Channel, but north of there, there's another patch there. So we don't know exactly why some of these are where they are yet, but we can identify that there's these hot spots, these super reefs, and then that is kind of what our job is. And Victor and the students at PCC, like you were saying, have been really important in helping us do this work, especially during COVID, when we couldn't be here. If it weren't for Victor and the staff at PICRC and just being able to keep this going for the last 2 years, we wouldn't have learned any of this. So that gives us a chance to say, here's some special reefs, and these are your reefs, these are your corals, and maybe this will make a difference to how you protect them, and then what you want to do with them. So that's our job, kind of, is to say, here's what we found out, and then the governors, the rangers, the conservation directors, then they can decide what they want to do with that. Do they want to take those super reefs and set them aside? Do they want to make them part of the protected area network? Do they just want to know they're there? Because that's really nice to know that there's something there that's strong. And those strong reefs are really important.
Bangkat tokta nga ay sa mal mewarang ulil mo sang yatta alaloyo labangela Victor. And then ngaringi tirigagi del student at PCC mirula internship tier one tier dirigal malme outstanding student Mr. Adrian Ililaon kay givya ulula bangala Victor ulula ban tiragang mal no maasarang dira ako tokora ulio luru lama sel da'ala ngol ako tokora research mong wasay te gigil te al no saber lo spera Victor mar interns yung no saber dirigal continue lo real find out get information even though yung learning ako with mang leatito la tokora omral mas kogi mang they couldn't be here physically but ng naringi sige the training maluda sa capacity building opportunity that they gave to Victor and Adrian and other staff at the center so they were able to continue the project in the midst of the pandemic so igigid ako ra tingin lang kaltok nga wase sige the lurio el May or lo bantir tagi del researchers sa center ki the student ang kala school kora developer sa igi del lomsu magagi del routine tiring mo sabi el dingar aroy de mga other tier through internet Zoom meetings mga rang and then and bro lagi the project even though they're not physically here so mal grateful el mga ngata el center or lo bangala Victor ma dili kan ngata el sabi el relevant term student interns dili kan mention na say kaya del project kaya del information the patig malubigi del result mal swala the share lo banter other blue governors ma rangers ang lo mention ra malig mang sira like with the last November we had the chance to actually visit the Imalik community. Yeah, so we went with Victor, and then he had the chance to. Initially, we wanted to meet the state legislature, so they were there, and then the meeting we had was not right next to the school, so we actually had the chance to invite the whole school. School, so we had the chance to talk to the community legislature and the students about the sites. And then after that short meeting, we had a short field trip to the site where we saw the different corals that were thriving in that super reef. Ang nga maloko la to el super reef leng sa super reef ang baloko la sang bato ay gigi el marandal sabi el tukura kleal, so they're more sisi dili kal waseng masada ay mali kanting waseng dakal dil tali mali kang aringi kay gital maranda ringi di naman siya na mali kay waseng bato kay gital maranda bil tigray mali ngaringi abebi maranda mali ka pelaw di mali ka wan na basol do sing hotspot bato ka kay gital heat resistant coral ringi edi ko la isola sing ngaringi imal basol nga oryor el ngarabi tara wana gal makal tawa al Southern Lagoon al dirigal hotspot tara kay gidal heat resistant corals madirigal imong ako ngarabi tara abil langar along el dirigal malbato kal lamaro lama alam karo lagi gidal marandal dito sa heat resistant so say gidal pattern na lames ringi and then natatal mo identify say ngaraw ul mang ngaringi hotspot tara gidal different basyo and then ang ako sabi mo ama say gidal pebir options at kila say Berius o la bagay ni sila marandal maragay pagpwede nga basyo or could it be the water quality like ang ngaringi ako ang niluol mang ngaringi gidal hotspot at different parts of Palumb.
Yeah, and those part of the reason for why they're heat resistant is because they're warmer, right? Okay. And that when we measure the water temperature at the Amalik or the Luke's patch reefs on the eastern side, then they're warmer than other places, and then we work in pretty shallow water, and the temperature spikes up like during the middle of the day. Hot sun, no wind, middle of the day. So that like strengthens them, and all the corals that can't take it, they're gone already. So it's the ones that are there are the ones that can take the heat. So that's how that happens there, and then that's kind of why what you can take them and move them to someplace else. And actually, sometimes you move them to someplace else, and there's two kinds of corals. You like move them to someplace else. Some stay heat resistant. Some keep their heat tolerance, but others are imposters. They lose it, when you move them to someplace else. And so that's one of the other experiments that we have been doing, is to make these coral nurseries and growing heat-resistant corals in them. And that's one of the things that Victor and Adrienne and the other PCC students, the Vernice's students, are just fabulous. And they did almost 2,000 experiments in the project during when we couldn't come. And I would be on Zoom with Victor like twice a week, 3-4 times a week, like Monday morning, Friday morning, which was Thursday dinner time and Sunday dinner time for me. So like we have to wait dinner because I have to talk to Victor now. And but it was working. It was the first time we could really talk, because of Zoom and the internet you guys have now. And it's going to be a model. I think it's the way to have other people, not just in Palau, but in the rest of the Pacific, who can do this work. Citizen science, there's plenty of students and plenty of community colleges and plenty of conservation biologists and, leaders who can do this. So we're hoping to make this as a way not only to help Palau, but also to spread it to other places. And it would be great for like the students here to teach students at like other community colleges. Anyway, I just get really excited about it because it's such an amazing opportunity to have people be able to find these corals and use them.
Ya mangkal toktang asing mal me warang ulang mlaring at elel sa even though ang ngaring ako ra tigi ba atito ra time lang selbe bilang meeting ma Victor mang meeting ring bela and to tartiang nya ko kwalte mela palsili ramrigel mang wasang ko am lambing el sayid and thing was say milsa sel the ela really lulu it was working ling a meeting almost every week, 2 to 3 times a week. I get a meeting taada adu sa sangaray gel bulorul ma wanga natatela la project, and they were really able to do that. So it'll continue the project and get good results from it. Even though he was not physically here, mang mal may warang ulo as to say tegi del teal los perar, other belao mar other care belao interested at tokoira marine biology malubang tagi dan ngal school intern masing segi da so dan masala sing sa ira ngal school subityang ikuk mo ay sa bebe ngal school in the region mang tekatil sing dakatil klangata alquradi focus be landing dere kal sebe edel ko kwase kada mo ospe ay gagid al blado su ma blado rule alqura adapt المراي كده التكنولوجي مع الرويد إن سأل continue vele ده دي رجال لو مرة تيجي لونجي التلاتة لو ريور المرة بيبينا بلوك متر كده so مالت مي وارنغو لسملرين التقل لوريور لو بنجلا research كده فيكتور نستور ما دي رجال المعلومات رجال environmental marine science تغني تيجي student teacher Bernice Yuchi at Palau Community College. I was one of those students. So thank you for the opportunity. I don't know if you remember, but I also did the project with Victor when I was an intern.
Yeah, I remember.
On the same project. So thank you for this opportunity. It was a really good experience. So ang gigida ko radil lulo ko lasing mal mo excited sa start ko ramsa dato ko school mga lang. So thank you Dr. Palumb for the opportunity. For that was given to the center and the students here in Palau.
And thank you again. It's such a pleasure to be here working with you all, and it really is a privilege. And we're honored to be able to work with you all. And if we can help, that would be such a great thing to be able to do. So ask what you need of us.
So before we end the show, Dr. Palumb, just to get an idea, so how many years have you been traveling to Palau, or the official start of the project, just to give them an idea of how long you've been traveling back and forth? And
This project we started in 2016, And then it got really going, and a year or so later, when we got the funding for it all. And so this particular project has been going that long. I first worked with Bernice in 2008. We brought the very first genetic experiments here, and we went out with her students all around. And actually, the first time I was in Palau was probably a coral reef meeting in 2002, or I don't even remember how long ago it was. But it was the International Coral Reef Symposium when it was held here a long time ago.
Mangkal tokta nga seng ka nga mle omul tegel project sera 2016 ding naringi kuk pebira visit ringin mera RSA so nga sera 2008 naringa telel me ora oriolo bangala gagi del teacher PCC Miss Bernice Yuchi mar bebira student ringil ora omsa omsubel amrand ding waseng seguidera RSA ang naringa telel mera ang 2002 ang ora mera meeting il naringira center kora digial tabada bagi ding waseng naringi meeting il naringi del hosting a center. So it's been a while since you've been back and forth between Palau and your lab. So and then during those traveling times that you're here in Palau, you're bringing a lot of students with you also, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We have 8 people with us now, and 3 of them are undergraduate students, and 1 is a new graduate student. And over the years, we've brought, 20 students probably with us here, and they all want to come. Right? We have a application like for the summer internship, and it's like, oh my gosh, all the people who want to come, and they learn so much, and it's just a delightful place.
That's good to hear. So throughout the years, have you what has have you seen any significant result based on your project or your visit? What's the one thing that really or what's the highlight though?
Well, the highlight, I think, what we have been talking about all this time is that when you look for them, you can find heat-resistant corals, and you can map where they are, and there's some places that have more than others. And we have now published that work with Victor and with Yim Nangobu, the CEO, kind of all around the world. Here's the map for Palau, and the fact that you can find these corals and they're pretty common is a great asset. It's this great, okay, you have something to work with.
Ang kaya tokta nga sa setya dal lurio loringi eng nasabail lotabadi segi dal korado seng map alol alta kaya dal different dal bashora al selbela wal waseng ngarike mal maasar ngule tnuwar ngule sa seng maral ngaringi kaya dal miranda di sabail dal matigra al selte al selada belbelaw mang segi del papilingi ablal publisher ngi ma so mang akamar nga karmi weng na sa del consul contact center, and then naki sikrole mas kami kapilingi if you guys are interested on the paper. So we are about to close the show, Mr. Palumb. So do you have anything you want to say before I start closing?
This has been a great interview. We do have some video of the Amalik reefs that we had made. We brought a videographer with us the last time, and I'm going to give that file to you guys, and you can play it twice an hour every day. It's beautiful, and part of it is not that many people get to go to those reefs. And you don't really know what's there, but if you can see it, you can kind of fall in love with it, and then you can protect it, and that's what this video is for. It's just watch it. It's really cool.
Thank you. So, Mr. Palumb, as a ngaringi video blal lungul me, so he will gimong kapil mastre other station mang tamo araringi ra bakal sales mong ko lamang ay kami lasing kaskalel tiyal pasyo ang aning gigil Miranda, and then maybe you can take one caller, and then we'll close.
Ali caller kang air.
Oi, malungit tutaw le korka chenis kumyo arawe video. Ewet tutaw le korka singe test. Bali interested la program. Kaya kora di sebentar wasay maligel ang awan raigel super reef silvelaw. Nga kabi la citizen Emily County state. Kam tiagi da kora kel le kora atokta. Ka tiga marin bal tiga yang penglihat selama mo kora ang tialger mo misal wasing wangara udah swere la tutaw. Kam kerin wasing gelen mungila baduru bela declare ngil mo island laboratory mutara kabul resistor ni UNESCO. Ora ti koris tiad mo ngil wasing ko ngaringa kamen gilel. E kam sulang maguk next program.
Silang. So that was a caller. He said he's a citizen from Aymalik County, Aymalik State citizen, and then so he's very interested in this talk show. So he was saying how he's very impressed with the show we're having this morning, and then he's asking if you would recommend that we declare the island as an island laboratory or like register it to the UNESCO.
You mean those reefs in Amalik? Those reefs?
The whole Palau.
Oh, Palau, certainly. Right, absolutely. It's a jewel in the whole world, and not only because of the corals that you still have and the fish, but all the work you've already done to protect it, and the efforts for the whole national marine sanctuary, and then the protected area network, and then the mangroves protection and the shark protection. I mean, you could just go on and on, the things that have been done in Palau for the first time in the whole world that really lead the way. And so, sure, absolutely, it's a place that is not only fabulous kind of naturally, but you all have nurtured it and taken care of it and protected it and loved it for the future. So that's a UNESCO site, but it's a place for you and your kids and forever.
Thank you. Ma'am Sole, caller malungil question mang saigi del plan dali lasang mal okmong sa beeling malungil diri ilwaysay lengwaseng mal amatra igalpek padengela management practices el doru la moriam la adeng o mulmutra at ako o mga la kabur so like bek padengel at ako el doru kora to la conservation ng mal wasa the mangal tangat el kerbelaw brulay gagidel to ko yang aringisel yung udol asa kada mga mokret ya lugalak lang arigidel lomda so ngal madadal time nangaligedra future so kung mal masala mal ngil question mangil comment
one follow up is that what you do here is up to you, and my role is just to help by providing some information that you don't have so far, but it's really up to you all to decide, and you also are using the reef really well, and you're going to continue using the reef. So it isn't like just like put a fence around it. How you balance using the reef and protecting it and is hard. It's really hard, and so it's up to you to figure out that balance, and that's so fun to watch, and it's so important that we're really happy to be part of whatever we can do.
Thank you. Mga sing mal relel nga sa relel avi provide gagidel mula gagidel amsu provide information disel mga lalasil sing gidel other los pa gagidel resources gid yang ngia kasi dela sing ngil do kararingi mga meseringi waseng klabo kala sa meseringi gidel los pa ringi conserve ringi atalyang ngia balancer sa gidel lus peed ma mga remelala lugal laklangar mang mal masarungul mang mewarungul mang waseng relela mal the provide information and the give the other bela los peed give the da ma Palumb may give the bek padangila resources gid ya ngaling ya كليسي إذ معلم التذ المساعد تنوع يقال ده سungungil mo o tola بالقرى مغريم لقى كده التقويرة environment ما هذا قد البلوم ما ذي قال ذاب so نقول قرى عملا لنا لقرا تمت so أقمو قاهد start to close the show miscellaneous ang aringi akmang kumara Facebook malubo ko mo may sa stuang ko mo sa vacancy announcement we currently have one opening going on at Alta mga communications and outreach officer tel position na diwaya position nga relila ko na di mo atrabalu oriola banteral school mru lagi kita lebek padangila oriola bantira at aquarium member lagi display mo atera usi sa akla al ser la aquarium ay kita tokora visit asal aquarium ma mutel baby la tokoy et tiagi del announcement tadiri available on Facebook ma website ramam www.picrc.org and it should be under the vacancy announcement like I said nga Facebook so mga nga taaliwil mara Facebook maming Palumb International Coral Reef Center sabi mi wal material sa gid job description magigid ruk bebila detail ra submitting application if I'm not mistaken in gilid close ra August 10 take the application so I highly encourage everyone especially migran ngal ma diregal adal interested at tora conservation ma education community engagement please apply for this position ng mal lungil al teal sa beet al rukorio laban ter adrabalu ang school ma tirakal mo tiling igi dara balubelaw diregal kidio ay sasing na open na Palumb Aquarium we still have our 50% off discount for everyone so 250 for adults and may visit all school kindergarten and more PCC you guys are free to drop by please stop by Palumb Aquarium and then if you have any questions or comments that some you will send in and there is 488-6950 malubo ko message through our Facebook account and then if some you will interested kami will topic definitely let us know and then if we can work things out and then it could be a possible topic for the next show malway say so kung mangtigi ang korangot is the next show rigid ang aringi August 9 is mamang 27 episodes so kumam sulang alruk na sabi ay labong kamamay al tutaw yakuk raming sa gagid mayang al ice through Berius al ice mga kamal sulang ma next show gid August 9 thank you and have a nice day.